makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am back with the first video that I'm making since returning to London after a beautiful 7 weeks in Budapest, which I strongly recommend anyone who lives in Europe or even those who don't live in Europe and go to Europe at some point. Beautiful city, beautiful country. Probably not the best government that they've had right now, but if you don't mind that, it's fine. Anyway, I usually don't make videos of topics that almost every other leftist channel is covering because I feel if I don't, either I don't cover it first or among the first, or I don't add any value to it, there's kind of no point. If someone already said something that I would have said. So this is a bit of an exception because I want to discuss the recent Krystal Ball appearance on Bill Maher's show and deconstruct it, but also give a take that I've seen that she's getting a lot of praise by segments of the left, seeing like, oh, this is the crystal ball that you know, that we would like to see all the time, not the one who agrees with you know, populist right-winger Saagar Enjeti all the time instead. And this would be, I guess, the equivalent is the way that a lot of segments of the right, moderate right, and centrist are currently, you know, adoring Liz Cheney as some kind of hero, or Mike Pence, which recently there was an Atlantic article saying that Mike Pence was an American hero. We all know that's BS. Just as we all know Liz Cheney is not the moderate savior of the Republican Party. So in that sense, you'll see where I'm going with this. Krystal Ball, while she does give a very good left-wing rebuttal to Bill Maher, who by now is basically just a right-winger. Like there's nothing left of Bill Maher anymore. Still, I'll explain why I think this is problematic. Okay, so first let's deconstruct that video.
Much money into the economy. There's way too much government spending, and that's why we have inflation. So that's a large part of that. It's just basic economics.
And that is not basic economics. We had this thing called a pandemic. We had a supply chain crisis, and oh, by the way, there's a war in Ukraine.
It played a role. It's played a role.
So to act like the only reason we have problems now is because people got a little...
So this is the old Larry Summers argument that conservatives love, that the stimulus spending for the pandemic, you know, the COVID stimulus bill that both Trump and later Biden passed, is the main contributor to inflation. That is patently false. If it had any effect in kind of overheating the economy, it does not compare to the effects being caused by, you know, global supply chain issues, as well as in the US, an economy that is highly uncompetitive, you know, in terms of a lot of industries having some degree of oligopolic power to jack up prices. And we've seen this in some of the major industries that have been contributing to inflation, like the energy sector. And of course, exacerbating the supply chain crisis is, of course, the war in Ukraine, which is making especially commodity prices higher than they would have been. So all these factors by far exceed those of any kind of overheating caused by the COVID stimulus bills.
A little bit of money in their bank account is just not honest.
And a little bit of money, they got more than we spent in World War II. So you don't act like...
So, first patently false argument from Bill Maher. If you add the stimulus bills, it does add to about $4 trillion in you know, current dollars. How much did World War II cost? Well, as it turns out, it cost about that much, 4.1 trillion in today's dollars. Now, you would say, okay, well, that's comparable, is it not? Well, no, it isn't, because usually when we try and understand the scale of spending, we use it relative to GDP. Now, the US economy today is much, much larger than it was during 1941, 1945. Much, much larger. So that 4.1 trillion as a relative to the size of the US economy at the time was huge, absolutely huge. Whereas now this 4.1 trillion is just not that huge. So it really is, you know, you want to compare the effort, and effort is always relative. And if you don't give the number as a share of GDP, then you're just, you know, picking headline numbers out of the blue. And I hate it when people use this kind of analysis. I see it, for example, in Britain all the time, when every year, every Tory prime minister says, we've spent more on the NHS than any other. We've spent more on the police than any other. Yeah, why don't you give that number as a share of GDP? They don't, because then you'd realize that actually they're not spending more. So, yeah.
Hold on.
Whoa.
Hold on.
Don't act like, you said don't act. Don't act like we had to react to the pandemic exactly the way we did. We had to spend $6 trillion.
Okay, but how about the
forever flu.
trillions that the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street? For some reason, people don't get upset about that.
How much?
And
What'd
that
you say?
fueled the trillions of dollars the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street to backstop the stock market and the bond market. No one gets upset about that, even though that was a massive
I don't know what
factor in
you're talking
inflation.
about. What do you mean shot at Wall Street?
Well,
when are we talking about?
We're talking about buying assets, buying stocks, buying bonds, buying treasury bills so that they expand the balance sheet. This is during the crisis, the coronavirus crisis. When the stock market crashed, that is what the Fed did. They went into action. They shot
but the
trillions
stock market
of dollars
didn't crash during COVID.
Now it's crashed.
Wow. Dude, for a guy who makes a living and, you know, a very, very decent living, I mean, this guy earns millions, to cover politics on a weekly basis, and he does not remember that the stock market crashed during COVID is, dude, if I was this show's producer, I'd fire his ass. Like, no one can be that stupid to not know something that happened and that pretty much like was a dominant headline during those days in March of 2020. I mean, this was like the most momentous month of my lifetime. Like, I've never been in a month that was just everything was happening. And surely you can remember that the stock market was crashing. It's unbelievable that he forgot. You want to see the evidence? What do you think this was? This is the stock market crashing pretty badly at the very beginning of the pandemic. This is mid-March when it reached first half of March was when it was tanking. It started since February. I mean, basically, when it became obvious that COVID was going to be a global crisis, it started tanking.
It's crashing now.
It crashed, and the Fed came in and backstopped it. That's what happened.
What, it crashed and we never heard about it?
No, it crashed.
This has to be one of the most embarrassing. I mean, Bill Maher has at least a recent history of just embarrassing moments, but this one is unbelievable. This is something like when he got home and he double-checked this and realized what an ass he made of himself. I'm not sure that he slept well, because this is so this is not an issue of opinion, because Bill Maher could always just hide behind, well, my opinions are controversial, yada yada yada. No, this is getting the facts wrong. And this is forgetting such an important incident that was part of the crisis in March 2020. It's unbelievable that he just forgot that.
Go back and look at it.
I think
it fell off a cliff.
When?
The Treasury bond market stopped functioning, and the Fed took extraordinary action it's never taken in history.
I don't
Somehow
remember
no one
that.
gets upset.
The first week of the
Somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money.
I love the other guy's face, by the way. He looks like a monkey, and he's like, you know, the monkey that's completely clueless about what everyone's talking about. And I have a feeling that he may know, like he may have like, yeah, I think there probably was, but I'm just gonna shut up As long as Bill Maher just says things loudly and keeps interrupting her, I'll just play stupid. I'll just play the stupid monkey here. But holy shit.
And tons of support, way more than working class people did.
Sure
but
they
oh
do.
my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world.
No.
That is one small part of the inflation story. And it is, by the way, not the only thing that we can deal with to get out of this mess.
Well, gas
so
prices.
Biden has
Is it a small
advocated-
part, Jamie?
Gas prices we can largely attribute to an administration that's been waging war on the fossil fuel industry.
That's ridiculous.
And
They've
now
drilled more than everybody. I mean,
that's the talking
US,
point. That's not
U.S.
true.
production.
No.
Okay, U.S. production is up.
Well,
it will be at record levels next year.
Okay, well,
the fossil fuel companies themselves are flush with cash, but will not invest in new drilling because they would rather give it to their shareholders.
Okay, all right,
That's the truth of what's happening.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of the reason is, so she's partly incorrect about this because there has been a decline in refining. And obviously, you know, the price of gasoline is related to not just the price of the crude or the shale that you're producing, but your refining capacity that's gone down for a number of years now. Again, they could use their massive profits to increase refining capability, but they just won't. Anyway, the other issue, so here's all the money that was, again, if Bill Maher had done his research, and it's a bit of a shame that Krystal Ball didn't have more you know, raw numbers to say. I can't really blame her, to be honest. You probably won't expect this to pop up, and I think she did a good job in explaining the situation, even though she didn't have the raw numbers, which is kind of why I'm doing this video, to show you the raw numbers. So here is a Brookings study on what the Fed did in response to the COVID-19 crisis. And so they did quite a lot of things, you know, cut interest rates. They did massive QE, quantitative easing, which was a policy, you know, that's basically the printing money bit. That was quite controversial during after the global financial crisis and the years that followed. But there's, I mean, this pretty much tells you the story of all the different things, all the different programs that they did, and you know, the amount of money that was either spent or used as guarantees. You know, if it's guaranteed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's spent. But yeah, pretty much on every sector of the economy had some sort of Fed intervention. The commercial paper market, Main Street lending, municipal liquidities, money markets, primary dealers, secondary market, corporate credit, asset-backed securities. And we're talking about a fuck ton of money. I mean, just look at the numbers. So, yeah, the Fed, I mean, this was a massive response. And it was, in fact, in terms of things like quantitative easing, it was so much bigger than after the 2005-2009 crisis. So just look at the scale of, this is the size of the Fed's balance sheet, which pretty much tells you how much money has been printed. There you go. This was insane. It's a huge amount of extra money versus what happened during the global financial crisis. So how on earth Bill Maher just completely forgot about this tells you how much he doesn't really read. And you know, being Bill Maher, all he cares about these days is just whatever trans swimmer wins a race in a college you've never heard of before. That is the news for Bill Maher these days. That's all he cares about. But actually, the news that is substantive, that has nothing to do with the culture war, is he's completely oblivious to. And that tells you his qualities as a pundit. He's not a political pundit these days. He's basically just a culture warrior. And a very bad one at that. So, all this sounds good, doesn't it? Krystal Ball owns Bill Maher with facts and logic. That's the headline, right? Well, not quite. And this is why I'm a bit skeptical about praising Krystal Ball more than she does. I mean, recognize she did a good job, very good job here. But what's going to happen? So first of all, remember what is really kind of the driving ideology of the populist right, which I think she is a part of, because, I mean, frankly, her contribution to breaking points does not help the left in any way. She is, you know, an apologist for basically all the arguments that Saagar Enjeti promotes, that Tucker Carlson promote. I mean, not to the extreme of like great replacement theory, but I mean, she's had like Twitter exchanges against AOC, things. I mean, it's still basically this argument that, you know, I'm going to out-left the left. I'm going to outflank the left from the left that's so not actually left, that it's right. And it's a narrative of this kind of post-left or faux left or whatever you want to call it, that is very appealing to a certain type of dissatisfied anti-establishment leftist, but also to a right-winger who doesn't want to come off as being right-wing, and not just right-wing, I mean far right. So the common point here, the thing that unites both this side of the left and this side of the right is economics. They're economic anti-establishment. And so they see an appeal to any kind of rhetoric that is, you know, fundamentally anti-elite. And so what Krystal Ball is basically doing here is replicating economic arguments that are appealing to these people. So she didn't suddenly like change her rhetoric from what you see on Breaking Points. Because Breaking Points, you know, she'll often say something against Amazon or against you know, some other you know, big business, and it's consistent with what she says here. But then it's the rest of the rhetoric, you know, the wokeism is going too far, the let's criticize every single leftist politician, including the squad, all that will drive people to the right. And if you saw this, if you were sort of on the fence and you saw this and you're like, oh my God, who is this amazing woman who just absolutely destroyed Bill Maher and this other creep who were, you know, constantly interrupting and trying to mansplain things that were wrong. Who is she? I'm going to check her out. I'm going to go see her on Breaking Points. And what are they going to get? They're going to get this kind of fake left or post-left arguments. And they're not going to end up being leftists. They're still going to be right-wing. So that is unfortunately what her role in this ecosystem is. And, you know, whatever benefit she is deriving from this appearance is going to be people who end up getting the rhetoric that she usually spouts on Breaking Points. And next thing you know, it's the same people who are going to listen to Brianna Joy Gray, Glenn Greenwald, you know, those clowns. So I just don't see this as a benefit to the left in any way. So I'm sorry, but I do think that you need something more than a 2-minute clip that may have made some really good points. You know, your position in this ecosystem matters. Your legacy matters. Your overall rhetoric matters. When you are a pundit, whether you're part of the establishment media, whether you're an online pundit, whether you're doing videos on YouTube, whatever, the rest of your content matters, not just one clip. You know, I wouldn't expect someone to you know, believe something that I said just in one video if in every other video I'm promoting things that run counter to what was in that one video. So it's the same with this. So, you know, she's getting a lot of praise from segments of the left, sort of like this was the old Krystal Ball, you know, the Bernie surrogate. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not. I don't think a single leftist has been created as a result of this video. I just think she's created probably a lot of new followers who are then going to end up, in that post-left, which really is right. It's the right. So maybe I'm just too pessimistic. But yeah, I would have... I would like these people to be a bit more honest about what they actually believe in, and not just use this, because now, actually, another thing that is problematic about this is that she will defend her leftism, her non-existent leftism, by pointing out this video from now on. She's going to be like, hey, I was on Bill Maher, challenging all his right-wing economic points. See, I am a true leftist. And she's not. So just be very cynical about these people. That's all I'm asking. Be very, very cynical. Keep these people at arm's length. And just don't buy into this, because all of this is a coordinated strategy. It's a coordinated grift to make people think that they are part of a left that they aren't really a part of. So, sorry, not buying it. And on that note, glad to be back making videos. This time I hope I will be more consistent. So if you like this video, please like, please share, please follow me on Twitter, and yeah, Progressum TV is back, baby.